Hi, my name's Rohan.
Hi, my name's Josiah.
Yeah, so today I'll be talking to Josiah, who went to Purdue for electrical engineering and is currently working on his PhD at Georgia Tech. So to start off with, what made you want to go into engineering back when you were in high school?
So first, I guess I have an older sister and an older brother, and they were both engineers. So I don't want to discount that factor. If I very much, especially when I was younger, would follow whatever they did. So they went engineering, obviously I was going to go engineering. Besides that, I think it is also a personality thing. A lot of engineers, they just like to figure things out and learn about things. And for me, there's almost even like a fear of growing up and getting older and like not knowing how my phone worked. Like I could use a phone, obviously, or use a computer, but it would physically like give me anxiety knowing that the most powerful tool in front of me, like I wouldn't actually understand how it worked. So I'd say those were the two major influences.
Yeah, no, my older brother, he also did engineering, so that definitely influenced me a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of, I never think that should be discounted. I think a lot of times, we might think we make our own choices, but really we're just following someone else's. Not that that's always a bad thing, but it's always good to look back and think, what was my passion and what was someone else's passion, and try not to confuse the two.
Yeah. So, as first we can talk about your experience at Purdue then. What was that like?
Um, I'd say, let's see, freshman year was in the dorms. They had new dorms built, which I got to be in, which was great. Um, it was really good having my older brother there because I wasn't very sociable at the time, which maybe a lot of engineers can relate to. And that was definitely a struggle. Um, and if someone's dealing with that, just try your best to get out there. And I think one of the most important things I learned was that when you're trying to meet people, trying to find people you like to hang out with and whatnot, you can't expect 100% hit rate. I mean, if you ask 10 people to hang out, and one agrees to, like that's enough. That's all you need. You don't need a whole bunch of friends, but ideally you should definitely find three or four, and that will really make, especially freshman year, a lot easier. As far as coursework, I feel like it was not that difficult except for math. Um, and that kind of has some backstory for me because I thought it was a good idea to try to do some independent study to pass, I think, the Calc BC AP test. However, the Calc BC AP test, you can get a 5 on that and still be very unprepared for math in college. I don't think the AP tests really correlate with college readiness, unfortunately, even if that's what they're designed to do.
Did you go straight
So
into
math
Calc
class,
3 in college? I get
hey,
disconnected for like a minute.
okay, I don't know if that was on your end or my end. I was thinking I could try moving to inside, but usually the Wi-Fi is pretty good out here.
Yeah. But yeah,
What was I saying?
bro, I was just asking, you went straight into Calc 3 then when you went to college?
Yeah, yeah, it would be Calc 3. And but yeah, my advice would be if you think you're gonna try to jump the gun by taking some advanced class, it might not be a good idea. Sometimes it's easier to do really solid in the basics before trying to jump the curve. It might save you more, not time in the long run, but probably a lot of sanity.
How many other math classes do you have to take during your undergrad?
I think just one or two more after that, which those were also a pain. Um, but I don't have any advice on that. That's just when I learned math was, if you teaching, if you're taking math from a math professor and you don't like math, you're probably toast. If you can get an engineering professor or an equivalent, that would probably be the way to go.
Yeah. So, you're saying that the rest of your courses weren't that bad? Very different from what I've heard from other engineers. Um,
Yeah, that can be true. I guess I guess it's a lot easier if you like what you're doing, which is kind of obvious. But I think the most important thing that you can do is know like the marginal return on your work versus the grade you get or what you learn. And if you're not familiar with that, that just means you can probably learn 90% of the information in 5 hours. To get to 100%, you'd probably need another 10 hours. So like if you have to choose how to allocate time, try to learn the most impactful stuff first. Don't try to reach, the tip top A+ performance and everything. Try to get the basics first. Because that's just where you're gonna have your highest marginal return. And then, if you're acing classes and you still have time left, then go for the A+s. Then go for, trying to win design competitions or whatnot. But ideally, definitely make sure you cover the basics first. And I think that will help with class load significantly and just how difficult things feel. Because all the difficult things that are probably being taught, they'll probably be on the last two or three questions of like a 10 question exam. And they might not even be the highest points either. So definitely prioritize the easy stuff first and hit the basics. And hopefully that will make classes feel a little less uh, time consuming.
so what made you decide that you want to do a PhD?
Um, I'd say a lot of it was kind of personality in my case. I didn't really feel prepared to go directly into industry, and I think that's a bad thing in a lot of ways. I don't know how many PhDs feel similarly, but I don't think I spent my undergrad super well thinking about industry, and that kind of didn't set me up very well. I thought it was about getting grades in classes, which obviously, all your professors can kind of make it feel that way. And that's what I focused on. And I focused on, learning the theories and whatnot. And by the end of it, I mean, and I like learning that type of stuff. That was the second reason too. I just like learning. I figured, well, might as well get paid to keep learning, if that's what I like. And there's plenty of ego involved too. I mean, it's three letters that I'll get to have on my name eventually, and it's a terrible reason to do it, but that definitely gets some credit as to why I wanted to get a PhD. And what was the other reason? Oh yeah, I just wanted to. I mean, one caveat: when I think back to all the smartest people I met in undergrad, very few of them went to get a PhD. It's not the right decision for everyone. It's not like oh, I'm smart, I should keep learning. If you're really smart, you should probably get out of industry and, make an impact. PhD, it's an investment, and hopefully they get a return on investment, but who knows? It's all up for time to tell. That's those were the main factors.
Um, Also, for your PhD, I noticed that it says you did bioengineering, not electrical. How different is that? And also, what's the difference between that and biomedical?
So the bioengineering versus biomedical is a bit of like an administrative sectioning. by Georgia Tech. The point being, bioengineering is a program, not a department or not a school, something like that. But bioengineering was made so that they could admit people from any background and put them on bio type projects. But it's purely administrative, well, somewhat purely administrative, purely just a way to keep track of people. Um, there's bioengineers who are literally in the same labs, work on the same projects as biomedical engineering, but their background is probably in ECE or BME. Sorry, not probably not BME or Mech E or Civil E, and it just helps Georgia Tech recruit. As far as going from ECE to BioE, there's a lot of people ask that question, especially when I've initially proposed it. And it turns out that historically, BME in particular, you started as a subset of ECE in most colleges. I know at Purdue, where I did my undergrad, BME grew out of ECE. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I will say that BME is, in my opinion, like a concentration of the other engineering majors. I often make fun of BMEs here, especially the undergrads, if they can handle it, because they get a little sampling of everything. They take a little bit of mechanical engineering kind of classes that are tailored towards BME. They learn a little bit of circuit theory from electrical engineering classes, and they try to put it together to apply to biomedical problems because it really does take all of that. But if you look at like the top research labs and who founds them in the BME type areas, it's not people who did BME as an undergrad or grad school. And maybe that's just because, BME programs are somewhat new. But typically the all-star people, they're mechanical engineers, they're electrical engineers, there's mathematicians, machine learning people, because it takes kind of that specialty focus and then you apply it to a problem in biomedical engineering. So a lot of people without BME backgrounds turn out to make the best BMEs. So that's kind of, I guess, not an answer to the question. It's more like the question isn't entirely relevant for most people.
Yeah. What's your research centered around right now?
So my research is roughly in the area of cell manufacturing. And in particular, that has application for CAR T cell therapies. And that's where you take someone's immune cells, their white blood cells. In this case, it's the T cell subset. And the immune system is kind of programmed by different antibodies. That is, uh, um, T cell it has a T cell receptor, which is similar to an antibody. The point being, it has a specific region that recognizes antigens. Antigens are foreign proteins. The idea is that we can create a synthetic T cell that can recognize any protein we want. The protein would, of course, be some protein that is expressed more on cancer cells than not. So if you make these T cells reprogrammed to target cancer cells rather than whatever they naturally target, then you can infuse them back into the patient and treat cancer. So my particular project is a very small subset of that, and it's the part of actually changing the T cell to detect the cancer antigen. In particular, we use electroporation, which is where a voltage is used to shock the cell membrane, and that causes the cell membrane to degrade temporarily. And during that temporary degradation, whatever you want to deliver into the cell, in this case, we've used mRNA so far, or CRISPR, can diffuse into the cell. And then once the cell heals, it will integrate that into its genome or start producing the proteins from the mRNA. And that's kind of how you can reprogram the T cells. But my specific part is on the electroporation, which is the delivery method of doing that, which is important, but a really small piece of a complicated picture.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds complicated. That's cool though. Um, how'd you end up like choosing what research you want to do when you're
So I met my advisor during just like a welcome week for the grad students or a recruitment weekend, whatever you want to call it. But I wasn't really prepared to like pick out an advisor. And I think I was dealing a bit with imposter syndrome at the time as well, which contributed somewhat. Because I remember I applied to, I think, 8 or 9 different schools, but only Georgia Tech accepted me. I was thinking, okay, my standing is bottom of the barrel. If anyone offers me anything, I'm gonna take it. And my advisor, Professor Sarkar, he was this was his first year, so I was one of the first PhD students he brought on. So he was kind of probably in his mind, or maybe even very practically, kind of at the bottom of the totem pole too, as far as recruiting. So he was at his poster, which usually, grad students present the posters for their lab, but it was just him at the time. So he was at his poster and we got to talking. And I liked that he used to be an electrical engineer as well, and that he had a project in the BME space, which I wanted to be in, that I could utilize my electrical engineering knowledge. So it was kind of a fit with research experience and I guess just where we were at as far as bargaining of what level grad students and labs we could get. Which I don't know how many grad students really go in with a target lab, but I was definitely not one of those people. I did not have, and I could have gone anywhere. Probably whoever shook my hand and said I'll pay you first, I probably would have went with them. So that's how it just happened to turn out for me.
Wait, so when you wanted to, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but when you want to do a PhD, you apply, get into the school, and then once you come to the school, you actually pick out what labs you're going to be doing your research at.
Yeah, some schools do it differently. And I mean, at this point, it's kind of, I wouldn't say nitty gritty detail, but it won't practically matter for if you go this route. But I think like Duke, for example, you'll find out your lab before they admit you. The point being, you need a professor to say, hey, I want this person. If he comes here, I'm going to fund him. Um, and then other places like Georgia Tech, the school will admit you, and then once you're here, you find a professor to work with. If you struggle or you can't find a professor, then you'll be put on as a teaching assistant. So you can pay your bills and you can try again next semester, or do like a part-time project with a professor if they need to vet people out before um, hiring them completely. So yeah, those are the two main differences. Some schools you do pick out a lab beforehand, but I think most wait until you're on campus and they can really meet with you.
Yeah. Um, Moving on, what do you think you want to do after you finish your PhD?
So that's a good question. And I don't really know. I know directly afterwards, I think I'm gonna take like a gap half year or year and just do some traveling because I've worked too many weekends while I was here. I'm gonna take some serious time off.
You know where you want to go yet?
I want to go South America. Hopefully hit a decent amount of South America. We'll probably start in Mexico City and just see how I feel from there. But as far as career goes, I've looked into um, I interned with the Office of Technology Transfer at Emory University, which their job is to kind of take intellectual property generated at the university and see if they want to patent on it and then license that out to other companies. And it was interesting, and I kind of took it because it was tangential to um, maybe working as a venture capitalist. And I think I was drawn to that because they get to see a lot of new technology and they actually get to put money where their mouth is at the end of the day. But honestly, after those experiences, I don't know if that's for me, just because I think I'd rather be working on a single project that I think is going to impact the world rather than like investing in them. An analogy I thought of a few weeks ago was like I'd rather be a chef than a food critic. Because even though the food critic, like, he has his opinion in the newspaper or whatever, I think it's really the chef who likes the food because he's making it. His career is actually making the food. I kind of see, not to disparage any venture capitalists, but I see them as food critics, and I rather.
Uh, I think it's working now.
How much should we miss?
You were saying, uh, I see them as food critics, and I'm pretty sure you're about to say, I want to be a cook.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rather be a
Understand?
cook than a critic. Okay. And then what did I say after that? And then I was also looking into business consulting, which uh, quite a few engineering made business people can all benefit from an engineering mindset. And that's kind of a new industry that I wasn't even aware of. Tool. So I'm looking into that, but I don't know if I really
It
have
froze
what it
again.
takes to do that either, because it's a tough job and maybe some engineering role. Sorry, say again.
Or it froze it. It like repeat like the last 20 seconds. I think it's working now.
Okay. I'm gonna try to walk into the.
Okay, I think it's working now.
Okay, hopefully this is a bit better. I've never had problems outside, but maybe it's the heat or something. Okay. Um, where were we? Oh, career options, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I should just start from the top. Um, right, rather be a chef than a critic. And then another thing I was looking into was business consulting, which a fair amount of engineering PhDs go to. Not, I mean, it's not a large percent, but it's certainly an appreciable one. I think that would be super interesting because I mean, it's about money. It's where kind of the rubber meets the road. We can do all the innovation we want in academia, but at the end of the day, if it can't create a product that people will buy, then it's not super useful. So that's definitely a draw for me. But that's also a fairly difficult job. So I don't know if I want to put in that type of time commitment. And then I could also see myself maybe working at a startup. There's a lot of cool startups that are have to do with the environment. I think that would be really cool. And I think at least a few of them will grow and probably become household names, or maybe not household names, probably one of those companies that's really massive and has a huge impact, but that no one really fully appreciates. It's kind of like sitting in the back, kind of like the Oracle in the software, runs a ton of back end stuff, but maybe not the flashiest software design firm. So yeah, I'd say those are the three things I'd be looking at. Maybe a startup or a consulting or I forget the third one now. Or just classic engineering at some pharmaceutical company.
Yeah. Um, when you're so you're gonna stay in like the biomedical space then,
Uh
or
no, I wouldn't say that's the case, no.
mhm. um, are you still like very open to changing, just like maybe more just electrical engineering?
That I don't know if I could transition back into pure electrical very easily. I think I'd be too far behind the competition at this point. Unless if it was, I mean, I wouldn't, I probably wouldn't consider it. Be very low probability, I think.
Yeah. Um, so you have one more year left of your PhD, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I know, again, I'm not too sure of how the whole process works with getting it, but I know at the end you have to present to some people and actually get approved, right?
That's right. Yeah, at Georgia Tech, we have a proposal, which is, and by the way, I don't think much of this is how it should be. Um, we have a proposal. We're about 2 to 3 years in. You propose what you're going to do for your thesis. Personally, I think that should be much sooner than that. And then your committee will agree or disagree, it's usually just giving you tips because usually it's your advisor that has some sort of funding and then they put you on the project which has the funding. Of course, their funding comes based on projects. They usually submit to the NIH in BME's case. So it's not like a whole lot of mystery of what you're going to have to propose your thesis on. And I think it kind of gives a fake sense that it's your thesis rather than just what your advisor has funding for. Um, but I don't want to get on too much of a tangent with that. But you have your proposal, and then you'll do more research for about 2 or 3 years. Usually classes are done after the first 2 years, so the last 2 to 3 is all research. And then we have a go no go meeting. I think 6 months before, where you kind of informally um, show your thesis committee, which is a committee of 5 other faculties. Um, what you worked on the previous 2 or 3 years, and they'll say yes or no. And if they all say yes, then you'll schedule your final defense, which is somewhat of a formality because all of the advisors already said yes at the go no go meeting. And that's when you give about a 35, 40-minute presentation on everything you worked on, and then you're done.
Yeah. Oh, what is your thesis?
I think mine will be titled Single Cell Control of Electroporation,
Mhm.
which, yeah, we can get into it more if you'd like, but if not, that's fine.
No, we can.
Okay, so I mentioned electroporation, which is where you shock the cell and then its membrane breaks down and things diffuse in. So my project is coupling that to a impedance measurement, or you can just think resistance measurement. It is you apply a voltage, you see how much current passes through something, and then that's called its resistance. So my um, work is on measuring the resistance of individual cells and then applying that electroporation voltage based on that resistance. You can do things like different cell sizes, apply different voltages, and that can optimize the electroporation uptake. We can also do things like sense different types of cells based on their impedance and then selectively electroporate only one type of cell, even though there's a mixture of them flowing through a little microfluidic chip. So that's kind of the gist of my thesis in particular.
Yeah. Um, so to end things off, I just wanted to ask you what advice you have for someone who's still in high school or really early in college who wants to be an electrical engineer.
Um, I would say something I didn't appreciate was really having a game plan and like work backwards from the finish line. Don't don't take it semester by semester. as soon as you get into college, write down where you want to be in 4 years, what classes you want to have taken, or probably not classes. Honestly, don't worry about classes. Classes are definitely just a checkbox. You're gonna have most of your fun. You're gonna learn all your connections through student clubs and activities. I know at Purdue, like some people, they love building the little racing buggies. Um, I know Georgia Tech has like a rocket club and whatnot. And there's plenty of a venture capital club. We have quantitative trading club. That's where you're going to do most of your learning. That's where you're going to figure out what you like. Obviously, try to get all A's if you can, working maybe 40, 50 hours a week, but don't do 70, 80 hours a week on classes. Cut it off at 40, 50, and then get some extracurriculars going. And those should be kind of your focus as far as where do I want to be in 4 years. It shouldn't be I want to have all A's. It should be I want to have B's and A's and some great extracurriculars.
What
As
were
far as
you
electrical
involved in?
eng I was, oh, let me think. Um, Remember I was in I'm trying to think of the relevant ones. I was in some irrelevant ones that were fun. I was in like a poetry one, and I think a multicultural society for electrical engineers. That was interesting. I think, oh, I was in the Journal of Undergraduate Research. I was an editor for them. Um, Probably looked good on grad school essays and whatnot. We just took in other undergraduate research and then we published a journal specific to Purdue that just had undergraduate research. That was cool. As far as hardcore engineering ones, I think I missed out on those. I didn't really take advantage of those.
And what do you mean by
And
hardcore engineering clubs?
that would be like building cars, building rockets, building,
Yeah.
um, I think it's mostly just cars and rockets.
I've heard of the solar car teams. A lot of universities have them.
Yeah, yeah, I think a lot have those. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely find a way to kind of apply your knowledge outside of the classroom.
Yeah. So, thanks for meeting with me today.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. It was a really nice conversation. I definitely learned a lot about electrical engineering from a different perspective. I think most of the people I have talked to are mostly just involved with chips and stuff, but this was different.
Yeah. Yeah, the chip work is yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
But yeah, thank you.
No problem.